Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us online and in person. Tonight, we're doing our monthly English talk, and we have a guest speaker, Brian Vosberg. And I will start the meeting with the reading of Living Spring, message 73. I really like this message. I don't think I have read this. Fraternal encouragement. And according to his riches in glory, may God will meet all your needs through Christ Jesus. Paul Philip 4:19. Do not think you are alone in the purifying struggle, for the Lord will meet all your needs. Look up to the Almighty, but from time to time, look behind you. If you are in a position to serve, then do so and then press on. Remember your brothers and sisters who live in indigence without any resources. Think about the mothers and fathers who must listen to their children crying with no means of drying their tears. Observe the sick whose circumstances have taken them from their homes. Stop for a moment and give a friendly look to a homeless child. Complete the anguish of those who are mentally unbalanced, confused in the eclipse of reason. Think of the physically disabled, shackled to dolorous immobility. Think about the maternal hearts tormented by the disharmony and lack of bread in their home. From time to time, stop your hurried pace in order to help the blind who walk in darkness. Then you might find that your own suffering vanishes before your very eyes. If you have arms to help and a mind capable of reflecting on the good of your fellow beings, then you are truly better than a king who may possesses a world of gold but is afraid to help another person. When you manage to overcome your afflictions in order to create joy for others, then other people's happiness will seek you out wherever you may be to bring you happiness of your own. May infirmity and sadness never impede your journey. It is better for that to take us while we are hard at work than for us to wait for it in an easy chair. My brothers and sisters, light a new flame of encouragement in your soul and press on. Be an angel of fraternity to those who follow you, dominated by affliction, ignorance, and suffering. When you plant the joy of living in the hearts around you, then very soon the flowers and fruits of your sowing will enrich your pathway. Such a beautiful message. Okay, so we're going to do our opening prayer. And then, Brian, just a question. Do you have your presentation there? Because it does not show here for me.
I took it off for the moment.
Yes, so just leave it on the, there, and then I'll. All right, so I'm going to do the prayer. Heavenly Father, Master Jesus, tonight as we begin our gathering, we ask for your guidance, for your inspiration. We hope to learn something that will fulfill our hearts and minds. We ask that you bless our friend Brian, that he can bring the learnings that he studied, and that we all can leave tonight feeling a little more enlightened than when we walked in. We thank you, Lord, for the life we have, for the body, for our health, for our family, our jobs, and everything that you give us. With that said, we ask permission to start our meeting. So be it. All right, my friends. So now I will invite Brian to come. We're going to have like a 2 second switch and we should be okay. I'm putting Brian. Okay.
All right. Good to go?
Good to go.
All right. So I got a task to do this lecture, and we were sitting here saying, well, what would it be like to live a spiritist life? Like, okay, there's a lot of chapters we did. We've had mentioned before with the be perfect from the gospel, the moral laws from the Spirit's book, all the examples. And I said, like, let's change it up a little bit. Let's live a day as a spiritist. So with that, I am going to start with good morning. We wake up in the morning and we're sitting here saying, just like we started this meeting, we opened with a prayer. So when you get up in the morning, say a prayer. Say a prayer of gratitude, blessings, to put yourself in a positive mindset. This is a wonderful day. And that way you start to make the day a blessing. You're starting off on a positive note. I remember a story actually came up on Hannity many, many years ago of a doorman in New York. He used to sit there and everyone that would come in, he would say, have a beautiful, blessed day. Have a beautiful, blessed day. Everyone it comes into. Someone took offense, had the person fired. But yet, what ended up happening is all the people that stayed in that hotel came back and says, hey, what happened to so-and-so? He made my day better. It's like, and then the stories that came out, he was hearing about, there was someone, a man found out his wife was cheating on him. He was all upset and grumpy and everything else. And here's the doorman saying, have a beautiful, blessed day. And it changed his mindset from right then and there. Having a crappy day to not so crappy, to maybe even having a good day. So how about we do that with ourselves? We wake up, we say a prayer, and we can sit there and say, have a beautiful, blessed day. Because we have the law of action and reaction. So we're starting off with positive, projecting the positive, because that's what we want back. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. Not only is it a law of physics, it's the law of spiritual physics as well. And then as you're going about your day, you're having your breakfast and everything else, you start getting yourself ready for the law of work. As a whole section in the Spirit's book. You're going to start your day. Now, I'm going to use this as a day of work, but we can also do this for the weekends. Because sometimes we do housework, we do the chores, we do the laundry, we do this other stuff. But also, when you want to go to the beach, you want to go camping, you want to go to an event, there's a little bit of prep involved. There's a little bit of work to put on a thing. If we're going to have churrasco, feijoada, barbecue, hamburger, hot dogs, whatever, pool party, there's some prep that goes into it. There's a little bit of work. And when I was reading through the book Plenitude by Joanna de Angelis through Divaldo Franco, he mentioned one of the things they have put in is put focus into it. Focus on the tasks. And that way you're putting your effort into making sure it's done right. You do it to the best of your ability. But you also have patience too, because sometimes we all get frustrated and we get mad and we're sitting here like we're trying to hurry up and push things through in a rapid pace. But what we end up doing, we end up being a little sloppy. And then we end up having to go back and do it again the right way the second time. So we also need to have a little bit of patience. It's like, hey, there's there's a lovely little triangle out there. It says you can have it for cheap, you can have it quick, and you can have it done right. They always say you can only have two of the three. Well, one of the things we've been seeing is that having it done right actually affects the other two. If you do it right, it's not going to be cheap. It may take a little bit more time, but it's worth it because now you're talking quality. And with God and what the Spiritist doctrine teaches us, they want us individually to be quality spirits, quality souls. We want to shed our imperfections. We're to be Michelangelo's David, that wonderful sculpted thing. Clear away all the stuff that's not part of the sculpture. So we go out and become our own works of art. So we're sitting here looking at this justice, love, charity, duty to combat pride, selfishness, and ego. So they're supposed to be the dual opposites. Because we're doing our jobs and everything else, we should do it with a sense of justice, with love, with charity, duty. Render good for evil. Now, I'm a civil engineer. I'm out there building buildings, roads, structures, infrastructure, the things that make society go. And right now I'm on roads. So when I go drive to work and everything else, there's sections where, yes, there's me and my crew that's blocking traffic to make the roadway better, and it's inconveniencing a lot of people. We know that. Okay. We're trying to minimize it as much as possible. That's why most road crews, they work at night. They would love to work in the day, but they told, no, you'll impact too much traffic. You work at night. So, but we're out there doing a job. We're working. So what does it say when we're sitting there, we're trying to make the road better for you and the motoring public and everyone else, and you drive by and say, get to work, you don't and swear or make any other comment you wish. It's like, does that make me want to do my best work? Does that encourage me to do a better quality product? It's like when you go to a restaurant or something like that, do you want the server to be attentive to get you the thing, to get your order right, to everything the right way? And then because of that, you're going to give them a bigger tip at the end. You're going to reward them for their service. We should do the same thing, even though we're not going to do money, everything else. Going back to law of action reaction, we're going to do good unto others. There's a whole gospel section on doing good unto others. Love your enemies. So you're supposed to do good and not evil. Don't turn the other cheek, render good. If they steal your cloak, if they steal your shoes, give them your cloak also. I think that's how that one goes. And start treating everyone else as brothers and sisters. You're there. We're all in this together. Some of us don't know it. That's part of the power of the doctrine. The doctrine is there to illuminate to us that we are here to improve ourselves. All of us. No matter your walk of life, your gender, your race, your religion, ideology, if you have dogs, if you have cats, or a parrot person, doesn't matter. We're all in this together. We're all in this to improve. We're all in this to be better. So we're getting to lunchtime. So good afternoon. We're now here at a time when we are going out to lunch. Now, for me, this is one of the times I get a chance to study. I get to go find a place. I get to disconnect from work for a little bit. I'll go sit at a restaurant, be it fast food or anything else, and I will have a book. And I'll sit there and I'll study for a little bit. Take my mind off what I was working on, disconnect for a little bit. Usually I try to make sure I can enjoy some sunshine as well, but that doesn't always happen. And I also try to make it a quality meal, but it is what it is. Sometimes you get a half hour, sometimes you get 15 minutes. So if you have to run through Chick-fil-A and get grilled chicken and soup, and that so be it. But you put the effort in. And then you're coming back to it. You're coming back to the grind. You're in the second half of your day. You had your meal and everything else. And if you're like me, now's the time when you got to be a little bit better, because you're going to be a little sluggish. You're processing the food. You're getting like, I'm tired. Plus, you've already spent 4 hours of the day already working hard. So you're not at 100% battery. You're down to about 60, 70, maybe a little lower depending on your profession. So you're getting a little tired and exhausted. So I'm using this opportunity to bring back the 2 greatest commandments that are in the book. And they're from the book of Matthew. You should love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind. This is the greatest and first commandment. And this is the second, which is similar to it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. All the law and the prophets are contained in these 2 commandments. As you're coming back to work, you're already, like it says, you're not at your best. You're coming in, you just had a meal, you're a little tired, you've maybe had some bad phone calls, bad meetings, starting to get a little cranky. It's like, but so now I'm sitting here saying, like, okay, time to take a reminder. Back up a little bit. Love God. Remember, you're here to be closer to God. You may not think of that right after lunch. I think it says you've got a whole lot of things to think about. So let's back up and think. You're on this planet, you're going through the process, and you are trying to make yourself better. And when is the time that we invest? When's the time that we need to work on ourselves the most? When we're at our best or when we're at our lowest? It's usually at our lowest. How many of the books have we read where we see the spirits that have hit rock bottom, and then that's when they finally have their eureka moment? That's when Andre Luis, he finally says a prayer, and he comes out of umbral, or the lower zones, after being in there for 8 years, wallowing in that, and he finally remembers to pray, and he comes out of it. So now I'm saying, don't wait 8 years. You're 4 hours into a day. Let's sit there and say, okay, God, not at my best now, but I got to remember to put you first, put your wisdom first, put the teachings that I have received to this moment. Remember, we're all learning, and we're not going to learn it all in one lifetime. As much as there is books in the doctrine and all the books that Chico wrote and all the books that Divaldo wrote, and we got Leon Denis, we got so many other wonderful things to read, not to mention reading the actual Bible itself. We have all this to read. Are we going to take it all in one lifetime? Probably not. But we can improve and learn. We got to remember, we're doing this because God put it in our path and say, you got it. You can do it. Remember, God does not put anything that you can't do. You can shoulder the burden. If you can endure this suffering and this pain, you can do it. You can beat it. God has faith in you. So let's step up and do it. You need that reminder. Like I said, you're flagging, you're struggling. It's like, how many times it's like, I know, Johnny, you love to go to the gym, and I'm sure we're probably halfway through your workout. It's like, I'm tired, I'm spent. You still got another half.
Oh, every day.
Every day. But you still have to keep on going. You got to keep on pushing through. Like, I love these marathon runners. They're sitting there out there, like, by mile 10, they're like, oh my Lord, and I still got another 16 miles to go. And then they still go through. They push. They just sit down like, yeah, I got 16 to go, but I've already done 10. So let's get going. Let's push. Because they know that they've got a goal. They set a goal. And they're pushing to it. Well, we read in the doctrine. We've read that there is a goal. This is a marathon. It's a spiritual marathon. And we're pushing through. And we're not at mile 0. Remember, they mentioned all the 5 realms of the world, from primitive, trials and atonement, planetary transitions to happy to divine. We're transitioning from 2 to 3. So we're at mile 10 of 26. We've already been through some of it. And we still have a long way to go, but we've also accomplished a lot so far. And as the second part here, love your neighbor as yourself. Everyone needs to remember the golden rule. We need to keep on following it every day. You go to work, like I says, you're cranky, you're crabby. Like I says, you just had to come back from lunch. You need that reminder. They are people too. They're just as crabby. They're not at their best. Everybody's at 50, 60% battery. They've had some things they've endured so far in that day. So give them a break. But remember, as I mentioned the last slide, show charity to them. No one has on their tombstone was a great worker. It's like this guy worked the hardest. So he's usually loving husband, father, son, brother, daughter. It's usually something that. So, and if you, like they says, you quit your job, someone will take over. They'll fill the hole with someone else. So the job is not as important. But then again, we should be implying to how are we teaching this? Why am I here right now? I'm teaching you. So I'm doing charity by teaching what I know to you. So when you're at your job, when you're at whatever you're doing, or even if you're at the beach with your kids, impart on them. If you just as you received mentorship, just as you received information to make you a better person at your career, profession, father, mother, whatever, as you got that information, make sure you're passing that on. Don't let it stop at you. Because that's its own form of charity. It may not be charity of money, but it's charity of wisdom, charity of knowledge. Remember that little saying. It goes there. You give a person a fish, you feed them for a day. You teach a person to fish, you feed them for a lifetime. So give them the skills. There's a lot of things I've been seeing out there today where they're talking about cathedrals and all these wonderful buildings from ages past. And today, we don't build anything beautiful anymore. Our artwork is not as beautiful as it once was. Well, are we inspiring other artists? Are we teaching them? Are we showing them, hey, this was beautiful. You can do this. And are we rewarding that behavior? Are we sitting here saying, hey, may not be first prize, but you put a good effort into it. So instead of doing a participation trophy, we're sitting here saying, may not be the best, but you're definitely not the worst either. Because even the worst gets a participation trophy. And we're saying no, God has told us already. We've seen it. You're already on your way. You are not the worst. Remember, we're transitioning over. You're mile 10 of the marathon. You've accomplished stuff. You are capable of stuff. You have the strength to proceed. Without charity, there is no salvation. And remember that charity is not limited to money. It could be the doorman. It could be have a beautiful, blessed day. Simple. It could be something saying, hey, are you okay? How much of that is in there? Where just a kind word is enough charity to change a person's mind. There's another story they mentioned with a person that was cleaning out their locker in high school. The books fell to the floor. And another person came and said, here, let me help you. And they put the books and everything else and help put them back where they needed to be and help this person. Not knowing that that person had chosen that day. The reason why they were emptying their locker was they were going to commit suicide that day because they felt abandoned. They felt ignored, invisible. And in this moment, when the books scattered on the floor, and this person came and says, hey, let me help you. This person was recognized. This person was seen. That was the charity that this person needed to continue on going, to live further. So I put it in my bag. I have a challenge coin that I got, and it has a semicolon on it. And it's meant to be for mental health preparedness and for people that commit suicide. And part of it says it's like a semicolon, because your sentence is not over. It's not a period. It continues. And that's a powerful saying. It's like, how many times have we read in books and readings like that suicide's not the best on the suicide on the spiritual side? It makes things worse. So we should be encouraging people, helping people to avoid that. That's its own charity.
And this month is like prevention.
Suicide Prevention Month. Is it September or October?
September.
September. Okay. So, that's right. October is breast cancer awareness. So,
Yeah, I guess it's like mental health awareness for September.
I think mental health is actually May. May is mental health, but this is suicide prevention. So, not too far separated, but. Or I'm sorry, June, because they always say like that's for people that. Well, I won't get into that. It's political. And we shouldn't talk about politics here. So, moving on to the evening. The job is done. Work is over. You're coming back home. Now is the time this is the day of the week that we do the gospel in the home. The reminder of what is going on in our day-to-day lives and how a random reading of the gospel can inspire, enlighten, and just refresh our memory that we also have morals, values, principles that we need to live. They always say that if we were an angel, we have two wings. One wing is named intelligence, the other wing is named morality, or morals. We need to strengthen both of them. Humanity as a whole has really strengthened the intellectual wing, but we haven't strengthened the moral wing. Usually they say that for the most part, humanity, they develop the intellectual and then the moral one catches up. The one I always typically use is the atomic bombs after World War II. Only 2 has ever been used in the history of mankind in anger. And that was back in the 1940s. Here we are, almost 80 years past. They've never been used again in anger. We finally found a weapon that humanity says this is too powerful, that we do not want to use. We'll use guns, we'll use bow and arrows, we'll use tanks, we'll use chemical weapons, biological, we'll use some really nasty stuff. But we finally found a weapon that says, nope, we're leaving that one alone. So we finally came up with the spot of our morals. Even after World War II, we created the Geneva Conventions. It's like, hey, soldiers, no matter if they're on the opposing side, they deserve a little bit of dignity. They deserve a little bit of respect. They shouldn't be treated worse than cattle, worse than our dogs or pets, worse than vermin. They actually deserve to be something. So they should have a layer of respect. I'm putting this one here because it's the gospel of the home, having the unshakable faith. It's the kind that can stand face to face with reason in all human epochs. I always loved this line because it's one of the strongest things that I did for why I have been with Spiritism now for 18, going on 19 years. And that is, when you read the Spirit's book and you undergo the philosophy, the logic it dictates is sound, and it follows, it flows. What's true now is true back in the time of Jesus, back to the time of the Hebrews, back to the time of the ancient Egyptians, back to the time of the caveman. And it will be the same going into the future. The gospel, we're celebrating, I think we're getting close to celebrating its 160th anniversary. 160 years of the gospel according to Spiritism. The words in it are still relevant now, even with the advent of the airplane, with computers, cell phones. How much of that stuff applies to things that didn't exist 160 years ago, but exist now? And how much of the teachings that we have in there are just as important? I know on we have social media. In the last 20 some years, we've kind of learned how it's been good and it's been bad. We have people that will do cyberbullying. We have people that do cyber attacks and everything else. To the point that social media needs to follow the golden rule. Treat others as you want to be treated. You may be hiding behind a fancy, cute little AI-generated picture of a cat or some other wonderful creation and have a name that doesn't, great artist 515 or whatever your avatar name, and you hide behind that. But that doesn't mean that what you're doing isn't hurtful. It doesn't mean, like what we said, action reaction, that you're not doing things in there. You may think that you're being anonymous, but yet you're hurting people, and thus you're hurting yourself. You're still pulling that onto your spiritual body. Your paraspirit is still recording that, what you've done. I know I'm repeating myself a little bit, but then again, when you read through the doctrine, it also repeats itself a lot. Not just Allan Kardec, Leon Denis, Joanna de Angelis, Emmanuel, André Louise, they all repeat it because it is so important. Love one another. Golden rule again. This is the first teaching. Educate yourselves. This is the second. All truths are found in Christianity. So, and I already said it once for lunch. Educate yourself. Now I'm telling you, educate your family. Educate your friends. We're here at a Spiritist meeting right now to learn, to be educated. And since we are home, we are with the family, here's one that's kind of keeps getting tossed by the wayside a little bit. Honor one's mother and father. Remember, you still have a family, and it may extend beyond yourself. So how many people will sit there and reach out to their extended family? We are here all adults, so we don't live with our mom and dad, but do we check up on them? Do we go into them? I get the Caravan of Love notifications for Tampa, Orlando, and Miami. And every week I see the photos they upload of people that are at nursing homes. And having participated in it a couple of times myself, some of the stories are heartbreaking to hear that there's people there that were just checked in. Mommy, I'm putting you in here. And then they never see their kids again. The only people that come to visit them is this Caravan of Love that comes in and sings and performs for an hour or an hour and a half every weekend on their schedule, which may be like for that specific nursing home once a month. So once a month, they have visitors. They feel like someone's paying attention to them. And it is the happiest they ever have been. They love it. You can sing off key, but they still love the tune. Because you're showing them love. You're honoring someone else's mother and father. You may not be loving them, but at least you're showing them respect. You're showing them a little bit of dignity, and thus you are honoring them. And for me, I have to work out in the evenings. I don't work out in the mornings. I should, but the way my life is, it says by the time I get home from here, it's bedtime, and I love my beauty sleep. So I like to have my 7 hours, if that. By the time I get home tonight, if I was to work out in the morning, I'd only be getting 4. So I am going to keep working out at night. But reading through the doctrine, reading through the Spirit's book, we are charged with taking care of our body. God blessed us with these bodies. These bodies are our gifts for whatever reason. Like if you have issues, like we have a whole section in Heaven and Hell of people that were born with deformities, that were born with handicaps. And to some, reading that section of Heaven and Hell, they would tell you that that was a blessing. They needed that because it took their mind or focused their mind on where it needed to be. They couldn't focus in on their pride. They couldn't focus on their selfishness. They couldn't focus on their ego because it was the deformity, the handicap kept them in check. There's books on that one too. I've read Renunciation a few months ago, and you had Antonio, that was the who put things in motion to steal another man's wife, managed to get him away and everything else, and say, "Oh, your husband perished at sea, crossing over to the Atlantic to the Americas." And they sat there, and all of a sudden, and he lived a life. Then he got involved in the slave trade. Then he died. But in their infinite wisdom, the Spirit says, "Okay, you wanted this person to love you. Well, we're going to let her love you. She's going to love you as an adoptive mother. You're going to be born to someone else, but you're going to be adopted by her. You won't know that, but you'll receive the love that you wanted. But it comes at a price." He had a club foot. His arm was, I think he also had a clubbed hand too, because he couldn't walk. He couldn't use his hands. He had trouble breathing. He had all this other stuff. He had things that were part of it because of the bad he did in the most recent life. He was going to give it again. But so he grew up, he was picked on, he was bullied, everything else that he went into, but he was under the loving care of the woman he loved in a previous life. And she was looking over her as a mother and inspiring her and teaching her with love and care and grace, to the point where her own daughter says, "This is my brother. Even though we don't look anything alike, this is my brother." And she fought for him tooth and nail. And she took care of him all up until the time when he perished again. He got kicked by a horse. And her sister saw him pass away and says, "Don't worry. I'm at peace now. I needed this. I'm better. Your love for me saved me. The deformities and everything else, you did not let that hurt me. You made it a blessing." And thus he cleared a debt. But we don't want to take on new debts. If we can give up a vice, if we can eat better foods, not processed foods, but whole foods, organic foods, non-processed foods, great. We can work out a little bit, go for walks, enjoy the sunshine, fresh air. If we can do that, then we are honoring God by taking care of the instrument that was given to us, our physical bodies. We've gone through the evening. It's time to say good night. So now it's the time to make preparations for the next day. What can you do? What can you prepare? Can you lay out your clothes in advance? Can you make things easier for yourself to do the next day? Because isn't that what we do with our incarnations? We're using this incarnation to make our next incarnation that much better. Isn't that what we did in our past incarnations? We made it better, so when we came into this one, we were more prepared. We were better able to handle that which we're going to do in our progress. So in many ways, a day is a mini incarnation. So we are born, we die, born with the sun, we die with the sunset, and then we reincarnate the next morning. There's a funny little way to do it, but it's like, then you can kind of sit there and say it's like the progression of days. And then we don't, and just like with Spiritism, we don't remember our lives. We don't need to, but we remember the general progress. We don't remember every day of elementary school. We don't remember every day of college, but we remember things we learned. We remember our skills. We remember what we liked, what we didn't like, and we use that to prepare. So we are saying prepare for the next day. I did not write this lecture today. I started writing this lecture a long time ago. This is actually version 3 or 4 of this lecture. Some of the stuff, actually, part of the reason why there's a version 3 or 4 is because of the symposium. They were talking so much stuff about there and how to live your life, immortality in your life. I'm like, ooh, that's good. Ooh, that's good. And I've been putting that back in here. Plus the lecture from last month that we had. It's like, pulled that stuff in. So I kept thinking about this. And also another part of the reason for it here is coming up is when I do the study groups with all these other different centers, they're in various parts of the Spiritist book. And Plenitude in Orlando is up in the 900s. And about 2 weeks ago, they did 919, the big one. And the first question was like, well, how should we proceed in our things life? Oh, a sage of antiquity said it simply, know thyself. But it's this follow-up question that's the long one. When you read through it, it says like that St. Augustine comes in and says, well, do what I did. At the end of the day, review. Did I do all the good that I can do? Was there something I left undone? Is there someone out there that has cause to be mad at me, to hate me? If so, I should need to go and reconcile with them. I need to make things better with them. So what are we doing? Are we focusing? Are we meditating? Are we reflecting on ourselves? Because once we do that, we kind of put ourselves in that mindset. It's like, okay, what can we improve? What we can work on, everything else. We've got, how many times do we see that where it's like we review what we did at work or some event and say, what can we learn from this? Civil engineering, bridges fall down, buildings fall down. We go through and we try to figure out how to do it to make it better the next time. I'm a big advocate of following SpaceX. And when you go back 10 years ago to barely get a rocket off the ground to they've got 90 some launches of Falcon 9, they've done 4 launches of the Starship. They're about ready to do the 5th one. They're putting a lot of effort into this. And now we see that things can be done, but you have to learn from the past mistakes. And they can still make mistakes. But then they learn and they fix it and they make it better.
You know what is interesting? When it's not spiritist, but when they're teaching you, like, for you to know yourself,
Mm-hmm.
that's what they say. Do your revision at night. But then a little is the same as St. Augustine, like thinking about your day. But they do say, like, how I felt. If I had a feeling, and then just go write down, like, what was that feeling? What triggered that feeling?
Mm-hmm.
What triggered that? And then when you go inside to see what triggered that, then you start knowing, like, and you do that one day and the next day, then
Yep.
start seeing a pattern.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, oh, this triggers me. So that's something that's, inside of me.
Or like Ben Franklin with his 25 virtues.
Mhm.
He had his book of 25 virtues, and he would work on one virtue a week. So for 1 week, he would focus a little bit extra on one of the 25 virtues, extra hard. But at the end of the day, he had a little tally book, and he'd sit there and it says, like, how many times did he violate each of these virtues? And they were saying, like, at the end of his life, his book had decreased. It wasn't perfect, it wasn't clear, but it was a lot less than where it was because of his self-reflection and everything else. He kept
Yes, this
improving.
daily review
Mhm.
of the day.
Yes. And of course, just like we do here at the center, and in most centers I've been to, we'll always close with a prayer. We should also go to bed saying prayers good night. Teach that to our kids. Did you say your bedtime prayers? We should do it too. Prayers of thanksgiving, prayers of blessing, prayers for saying, please, Lord, watch over me as I sleep. Help me get over whatever trials and things I'm going through, or the strength to get through it, the answer to a problem. Let's see if we can't ask for things to get better for us. So, getting close to the end, but I did want to bring this up here, this line from the Gospel according to Spiritism in chapter 17. True Spiritists are recognized by their moral transformation and efforts to overcome their evil inclinations. Now let's reflect back on all the stuff I said in this last 50 minutes. That's love yourself, love your enemies, love God above all others. Know thyself exercise, prayers, charity. Are we doing this? Are we overcoming our evil inclinations? Maybe not perfectly. As I mentioned with Ben Franklin, things improve over time. But are you improving? How long have you been how long have you known Spiritism?
I don't know, maybe. I've been here 30 years, so probably 35.
35.
My whole life.
Whole life.
Not 35.
35. Couple months.
17 years.
17 years. He says, I'm 18, I'm 19. So, but still, we're all at different levels. But yet, in that time frame, you probably most of all, because it's only so short, have you seen a difference in your life from when you started here to now? Now, we all have our lovely little cell phones we love to carry. Think back 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago. Look at how they've changed in all that time. If they've changed, we're changing too. We're learning, we're improving, but we're also getting new challenges too. Like I mentioned, social media. That was not around in the 80s or 90s. That's a 2000s creation. We had a generation grow up with living it. We saw the fallout from it, the good, the bad, the ugly. And now we got a new generation that's coming up. They've had it, but they've also had experience from the previous one. They've had the charity of knowledge. And there's something like it ain't all that. You may think so, it's not worth it. Some still follow that rabbit trail. Some say, you know what? I don't need it. I love to be happy. I have my friends. I love to go to the playground. I love to play. I love to do things with myself. I love to do my arts and crafts. I don't need to involve myself in the greater internet world. So, with that, I will open the floor for any other questions, concerns, comments, gripes, complaints. Got to be a little fun on that one.
Great. I'll just make a comment. It's something that I usually do that I've learned in one of meditation sessions that I had. There was a training for like food meditation
Mm-hmm.
where I've learned to also, when I eat, I use that time for gratitude. So before I eat and while I'm eating, I'm mentally, thinking about all the processes that happen for me to get the food. And I try to be grateful for everybody that was in the process,
Mm-hmm.
including the animals, if that's the case, right? Because even if I'm eating chicken, the chicken had to give, right, the life for me. So I always do that when I'm eating as well. So I think that time to think about everybody involved and being grateful for every single one who was part of that meal for me.
So, no, sorry, we're just communicating because he got off, but I told him to go back in.
Well, I'm not. Well, I was thinking like I didn't know if I should turn the camera around.
No, you're fine. Sorry to interrupt. It was just because I saw he was off. I was like, thank you for your comments.
Yes.
Brian, I forgot to ask you at the end after everyone, is done. Would you do the prayer?
Mm-hmm. I already mentioned it. You don't close. You don't
Yeah.
finish a center session without doing a closing prayer. So, with that,
Thank you.
we'll do.
I really liked the idea of breaking down the day. Like I never really thought about.
Love it. Yeah,
I mean, it does make sense. Like we put effort, for work, but we should put little bits here and there, and that enhances our day.
Right.
I really like that.
Because as I was sitting there,
approach.
like I've done the sections on Be Perfect. I've done the section on Living a Moral Life. I've done all those things. But you're right, having a new spin on it is a thing. You have a question?
Well, like in the evening when you're reflecting over the day, so many times I found myself sitting there and being like, I should have done this. I wish I would have done that. And
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of like one of those things that sometimes it can be a motivation for the next day and preparation for the next day. But then sometimes you can also take it to the other extreme of being like, I just missed an opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
I've missed this day. And that's the time that you have to go ahead and say, hey, listen, maybe you did, but tomorrow
It's a new day. Yes.
That's
And
the
and going back to morning,
Right.
set it up as a good day. Set it up, prep it. Like it says, if you need to leave a message to yourself, like a little post-it note, or one of the things I love to do is I'll have a whiteboard marker and I'll put it on the mirror in the bathroom, because everyone has to use the bathroom when they first get up in the morning, so you'll see it. So I'll write a message. I will write the to-do list. So, and no, it's not in lipstick. But yes, I will sit there and write the comments, and I'll sit there like, hey, and if sometimes it could be words of affirmation. I could be feeling low, I could be feeling down, and everything else, and then I could just sit there and just say like, you got this. Or one of my more fanciful ones is, you are a creation of your past. Let the world see what it has made. Like you've endured, well, actually I think it's like you've endured so much. Let the world see what it has created. Because you've gone through your pains, you've gone through your sufferings. At another center, I mentioned that we say this is a world of trials and expiations. That expiations is in suffering and pain. You suffer and you do pain when you're at the gym. You're getting stronger. You go to college. It's not fun. maybe on Friday nights, but for the rest of the time, you're studying. You're putting a lot of effort in to pass your test, to go through long all-nighters, whatever you need to do to get that degree. It's suffering, but it's intentional. Why? Because at the end of the day, you're stronger. You've got your degree. You've got your promotion. You've got what you wanted for. You set a goal and you got it. You endured the pain to do it. That is what the suffering in your life is about. You are in training for something better. You're in spiritual training to become better.
And what you just said, like, remind me that when they tell you about this review at the end of the day, they always put the element of compassion, like we need to have compassion for ourselves.
Yes.
Because it's not easy to look at it.
No.
Yeah.
And that's, again, why like we're going to close with a prayer. The same thing when you go to bed or at night and you say your nightly prayers, do the same thing. Bless yourself. Let it say, like, God, I may not have done all the best I could have done, but I did my best. Please give me the strength to go on for tomorrow. You can move on with that. And it keeps you up and then like keep you in that positive frame set. Remember that action reaction. Push out positivity so you get back positivity. Don't dwell on the negative. It's easy to do it. It's a negative. It's a bad tendency that we have. So it's a bad habit. Probably worse than biting your nails. But go out there and do it. Try to do better. So with that, let's close with our closing prayer. Dear Lord, wonderful Master, mentors of this house, and of all the spirits in attendance today, watch over us now as we part company. Let us take the knowledge that we've received tonight. Let it inspire us, engage our mind, our bodies, our spirits to progress that little bit more. Let us go forth from here with that light of inspiration. Let the love that we share amongst ourselves radiate out to those we encounter in our day-to-day lives. Let us be beacons of your wondrous light, the seeds of light that goes out and brings love to those we meet. That we can show charity, even if it's just a word. That we may lift them up, help them undergo the trials that they are going through, and endure the race so they may reach the end, which brings us to your wondrous light, love, wisdom, and that greatness that we are desperate to achieve. Let us go forth from here, strengthened and rejuvenated for that which we are to do, and we be the help for others. Amen.
So now we're gonna open the